All right, John, thank you for jumping on. Much appreciated. We're happy to have you.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. I've since meeting Beth, I've been binging all of these for the past couple of weeks. And as a cartoonist, we don't deal with each other a lot. We don't have a lot of face to face. So I learn a lot just from hearing the other cartoonists talk about what their gigs are.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. Um, well, then, being a listener, you kind of know how we do it. If you don't mind, just starting with a quick background on what got you into
Sure.
cartooning in the early days.
Sure. Well, Beth and I were talking before we started how much it's an obsession for a lot of people, and I fit in that category. It's basically all I've ever wanted to do. I started selling cartoons. There was a publication called the Artists and Writers Textbook or Handbook, which was big. This is back in the 1980s, and I used to just look up magazines or buying cartoons through that and send off cartoons to them when I was in high school, and I was selling that way. Since then, I've done pretty much anything you could do cartooning wise. I did a syndicated comic strip for a couple of years with Universal Press. I did a lot of editorial cartooning in the Boston area. I lived in the Boston area for about 20 years. And then just transitioned into the New Yorker.
So, in high school, as early as that, you realized that cartooning could be a profession.
Uh,
Sorry.
it, it depends on your definition of profession, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it was what I wanted to do and what I did all the time. I was one of those kids who was getting notebooks taken away from him because I was doodling in it, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it was interesting because in college, I remember having, friends and roommates who were changing majors, and I just didn't get that because I had a pretty much direct line what I was doing. When I got out of college, I was literally walking the streets, knocking on doors, going into newspaper offices saying, "Hey, you guys want to buy a cartoon or a cartoonist?" So, it's not, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. And it's not exactly a financially lucrative way to do things, but it's the way I did it.
And so, how quickly did you start attempting the New Yorker?
Well, that's interesting. That was one thing I never aimed for. I was never interested in becoming a New Yorker cartoonist. For me, I was in love with comic strips for a long time. I kind of straddle the technology world, and that I started out doing a lot of stuff in print, and before we were doing the digital. And so I was really into print comic strips and comic books and stuff like that. So it was only after I had uh, exhausted all the other options that I was talking to a couple friends who were New Yorker guys who said, "Hey, why don't you give this a try?" And so I came in and one day and showed Bob some stuff.
Also, prior to that, you weren't even really doing single panel. You were doing more strips.
No, I was doing a lot of editorial cartoons, and I also worked in technology for a while, like doing technology business cartoons for before the when technology was actually print magazines. They were still running cartoons then, so I was doing weekly cartoons for a bunch of publications. Yeah, I was just doing a lot of different subject matters.
And then, how long did it take you to actually break into the New Yorker once you had that face to
Um,
Bob?
yeah, I started submitting. I, I'm not the most confident person about cartoons, and I kept on thinking every time I send in a batch, when I first started sending in, I kept on thinking, well, they're going to call me up and say, "Hey, please don't bother us anymore. Don't do this anymore." Mainly because I kept on screwing up the technology. This is back when before we were sending in PDFs or whatever. We were faxing things in, and I would screw up the faxes, or I would send 50 cartoons by accident and things like that. And I kept on expecting whoever the cartoon assistant was at that time to call me up and say, "Hey, please leave us alone." But then I finally I actually finally got it down, started sending stuff in, and I sold my first one probably like 9 months after starting submitting. So I had to change my style a little bit. I had a heavy editorial style at that time, a lot of cross hatching, real black and white. And just to make that transition into a more gray tone, it took me a few months to get that down.
Yeah, and well, in 9 months is pretty good, as I'm sure you know from other stories. But even
Oh,
nine
yeah.
months is is a long time, which kind of highlights how it has to be an obsession, because 9 months of submitting every week and drawing batches is very time consuming. And to
Yeah.
get no sales, it's like if you don't really love it, it's a lot of work for nothing.
Well, I had already, based on the work I had been doing at that time, I was already in that mode of producing cartoons, even for other clients and stuff like that. And I think that's a big part of it. I'm always like, I know Amy Huang, when I first met her, she had a full-time job and was submitting every other week. And I still, because I was already a cartoonist, I was able to, just transition that into creating a batch every week. So that was easy for me from a production standpoint. Whether it was easy for me from a content standpoint is somebody else's call.
Yeah. How long does a typical cartoon take for you to draw? I assume, at least in the early days, you were sending finals. You weren't really sending roughs, just so they can get a feel for.
I still send finals. I'll send pretty much finished line work, just because I always want that, who's ever on the other end to get an idea of what it looks like. I don't trust my sketches. So it takes me, to do a finished piece, a couple hours. It depends. I've done some crowd scenes that, those will take a day or two, but generally I try to keep it, simpler.
And you were sending 10 a week back then?
Yeah, I'm a believer in the Bob school. Yeah, it's 10 a week.
And you
But
were doing that all.
That's probably about 20 hours, right? I mean, to submit a batch is
Yeah. No, that's probably, I don't keep track of the time. There were some weeks that flew and there were other weeks, I'm sure you've heard it from numerous cartoonists where, it's the last one they buy, it's cartoon number 10, which is usually a throwaway or something just to fill the batch. It always killed me because I was in Boston or I lived in Maine when I first started submitting, or I still live in Maine. And I would only go to New York like once or twice a year. I'm back in the old setting when Bob was there, and it was the green room. And the green room, I'm sure, as you've heard from numerous other people, that was cartoonist heaven. You walked in there and it was your tribe. It was just, Sam holding court over in the corner, and Gan Wilson and Sid Harris and all these guys that you'd grown up reading about. And and then so it was really funny because I would come down like 2 or 3 times a year, take a bus down to New York, go into the office and grab a bus right after the meeting, right after lunch. I'd grab a bus back to Maine. And a couple times it happened where Bob would close the door just as it was my turn to come into his office. That happened like 2 or 3 times where
no.
it'd be like,
what do you do?
What's that?
What do you do? Stick your foot in the door and say, no, you got to take me.
No, George is shot. For to his credit, I think he remembered that. He's got an incredible. As he's got an amazing memory. And the next time I was there, he would give me extra time. It seemed he would, he would really go over things. But he always also had this wonderful ability to pick my worst cartoon out of the batch whenever I was sitting down with him. And he'd say, explain this to me. And it was just painful.
Like, if I have to explain it, it's not funny.
Exactly. Right.
Wow. Oh, sorry, Ben, go ahead. No, I was going to say, you said that you started with a heavy editorial style. Did Bob suggest to you that you needed to change your style, or did you just take that upon yourself?
It was my decision. The first couple, I know when I showed the first couple batches in person, they didn't look like New Yorker cartoons. They were definitely much more editorial looking.
I brushed past it, but you said someone introduced you to Bob and kind of urged you for the New Yorker.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Drew and I have worked in Boston at the same time. We didn't spend a lot of time together, but we were in the same circles, so we were aware of each other's abilities and cartoonings.
Yeah, it seems to be the same names come up. Drew and Matt Diffie seem to
It almost seems like the Matt Diffie school, right? If we had a family tree, a cartoonist tree, it would be Diffie, and it goes down from there.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah.
And then obviously, what was the first one you sold?
It was a pantomime, actually. It was a lineup of windmills, and all the windmills had fans plugged into them to make them go. It wasn't a great cartoon, But I'm not gonna, they bought it and I'm very happy about that. I was really surprised because the week after that, they ran an Alec Gregory that was very similar. And I thought, oh my God, why did they run me when they had an Alec Gregory in the vault already? So
Oh, that's interesting. I'm looking for it on a cartoon bank, and I don't know that I can find it. But
they might not they haven't got several of my cartoons on there. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that one's on there or not. I haven't looked at the bank in a while.
did they run it pretty shortly after buying it?
I can probably more like 4 to 6 months after buying it. I mean, I was aware of how that works. So, I just, I had cashed the check, so it was okay.
Was it off to the races after that, or did it take a long time to then
Well,
sell?
it's interesting. That's a good question, Vin, because they always seem to buy them in twos from me. I've never been one to like sell a whole bunch in a year or anything like that. But whenever I sold one, it seemed like they would buy one the next week, and then it would be a long dry spell, and then it would be two more. So that always happened, and I have no understanding of why or how that happened.
Huh. Are you still submitting? Yeah, I guess obviously, right? I've seen your stuff fairly recently, at least in the
about a
Caption
year ago. I haven't submitted for the past several months. I've just gotten real busy with other projects. And there's so many people submitting that it feels like it's a real crapshoot right now. So I'll submit again, but right now I'm busy with some other projects.
Did you go in and meet with Emma when she took over?
Yeah,
Did
I did. Yep. It was interesting. Not Emma. Emma's great. She's good at what she does. But the cartoon, the green room was different. From Bob's days when it was, like I said, it felt like our tribe in there, and everybody would go to that French restaurant afterwards. Everybody was kind of in their own world in the green room at the new place. There were a couple people who were talking, and the one time I went there, I was lucky George Booth had walked in, so that was wonderful. But it wasn't the same place.
Was it many more people? Is that why? Was it just so many more people?
No, it was actually just kind of in the old green room. It used to be. I mean, the old green room was about as big as a phone booth. I mean, it was just everybody sitting on top of each other, and talking shop and stuff like that. And any room that Sam Gross is in, that's going to be, he's going to be, ringmaster, and things are going to be lively. And this room people were kind of more self-involved, people on their phones, making sure their batches were good, and just things were moving a lot quicker.
No.
I mean, I think that's the nature of the beast. I mean, you've got I'm no expert, but it just seems cartooning's taking a generational shift right now, both in the content. You guys have noticed the way New Yorker stuff looks, and also in the people who are doing it. I joke that cartooning, I still hold aspirations of making a living cartooning, but I think for a lot of people, getting one or two in the New Yorker is enough. So it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can't make a living just selling to the New Yorker. That's for sure.
No,
That's
not going to happen. No. Well, I mean, no. There are a handful of people who can, the cream of the crop, and that's understandable. But yeah, I think the vast majority of us, no.
And just looking at your stuff now, I'm obviously this is all hand drawn. That you're not on the computer.
Yeah, I'm a dinosaur. Yeah, I like ink on paper. Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of tell when it's.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're into technology. I mean, you.
That's a good point.
So I like that it's you're in technology, but you're also doing it the old-fashioned way, which is great.
I was in love with the old the comic strip Pogo was a huge thing for me when I was a kid, even though I didn't get it. But I loved the art. The art was just fascinating to me. And when I learned that Wally Wood was one of their inkers, and then I learned that they all use brushes. And so I ran out and grabbed a brush and locked myself up for a week, just practicing to draw with a brush. And it's interesting now because I teach cartooning at a small art school in New Hampshire. and the kids are all, it's all digital, and I have to like nudge them. I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to do a little traditional work today, and to which they all moan. And but so it's interesting watching that transition, because they can get a pretty good brush line on a digital, on Procreate or any of their iPad stuff. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it makes such a difference when you do it by hand rather than on a computer. It just looks so much richer and different. Like you can set your own style that way. A lot of the digital art looks so similar to one another.
That's a really good point, because especially in speaking in the New Yorker, you can tell the digital stuff. It's gotten cleaner. There's a real clean look to it.
Yeah.
But you wonder if what will distinguish it, what will make them different in the long run. An Ed Steed just stands out so much by his style, right? Drew's style still stands out so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I like to be able to recognize the cartoon, without even looking at the signature, like to be able to recognize whose cartoon it is.
Sure.
And a lot of the newer cartoonists, you can't really tell.
No, I know. And that might evolve. I wonder if that's going to evolve over the long run, where people will slowly switch back to traditional art because it makes them stand out stylistically.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've got a son who's a graphic designer, and he loves, just sketching on a sketchbook. But when he does his actual professional work, he'll do it on a computer. But for just practicing and whatever, it's paper and pencil. That's what he does, and that's he gets a feel for it that way. And but it's just easy once you get on the computer to tweak things.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting, because I would imagine I'm no expert, on an iPad or anything like that, but it seems like you can get the same, you can create different pencil points and brush points and things like that. So after a while, wouldn't it be the same motion? I mean, you're drawing on paper or you're drawing on a screen.
I imagine there's a different feel to it, though. I mean, you got pen or brush on paper, and rather than a stylus on the screen, there's just a different feel for it. I don't know if you can replicate that.
Yeah. And I also, I mean, I'm not an artist, but I would think that when you're doing like the ink washes, the watercolors or whatever, that's going to come out completely different on real watercolor paper with real watercolor than it would by, clicking a button that says watercolor on an iPad.
Well, you guys look at a lot of New Yorker cartoons. Who do you think was the first one that was doing digital stuff?
Wow.
I always thought it was Alec Gregory.
I think that it was
because he was the
him.
cleanest.
Yeah.
I think that he was.
You say his just because how straight his lines are and everything is, right? It's like where it's just, I know what you mean by that. I love his stuff, but his lines are just too straight. Where you say that can't be hand drawn.
His lines are too straight. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's interesting. I think that even the digital drawing has changed over time. Like Kim Warp told me that she does all of her work digitally, and I never would have guessed that. Wow. Never would have guessed that.
Yeah. I wouldn't.
But some of the newer cartoonists, you look at it right away and you could see, oh, that's digital, but some of them do sneak by. And at first, maybe I just wasn't savvy enough, but I didn't realize that Alex Gregory was working digitally until recently. I think when he told us he was digital. But now looking back at his work, knowing that, I can tell.
Right. But where that's a problem is in signatures. And one of my favorite things in the New Yorker is looking at cartoon signatures. And seeing these people who are just rubber stamping their signatures is really offensive to me. I'm sorry. I want an original signature every time.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm the same with signatures. I don't know why it's Speaking of which, how did yours come about? Was it just natural the way you did it?
Similar to my drawings, it just evolved. There was never a lot of intention, but my New Yorkers, it's interesting because I did change my signature when I started selling stuff to the New Yorker, because my old signature was kind of a real loopy, full editorial cartoonist sort of thing, and I wanted to make it a little simpler for the New Yorker. So that was intentional, and it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's too big. Sometimes I feel like it relatively is too big in some of the cartoons, but that's, personal insecurities.
But and you're right, it's always different. I guess I never really, yeah. So the people who are all digital are just stamping it in. They have it.
They're
They
rubber
have it,
stamping it.
and they're just stamping it in. Yeah.
Let's get more original signatures from cartoonists, huh?
And I mean, they obviously can't sell originals that way, right? If it's not hand drawn.
Well, I've talked to a couple people who work digitally, and they sell prints just as well. I guess I don't know what the market is like as an original versus a print, but I think that's a factor for them. They can sell more of them.
They're selling. What's becoming a bigger thing is to sell what they call monoprints.
Yeah,
where they agree to only print one and sell one of their their print.
So make it a collector's item.
Put like a certification on the back that this is a monoprint of the print. Now I don't know how that works with sites like Cartoon Stock that licenses and sells reproductions of those prints, but that's how they're marketing the originals when they're digital.
That's strange, right? Because I could just print it. I could just make a copy of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's baffling to me, like the world of cryptocurrency is to me.
Yeah.
Like the whole Bitcoin thing. I don't really
The late world of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
I love to see it falling apart, I tell you.
The Ponzi scheme of our time, right?
Right. Exactly. But you do a lot of work for other publications in color, which looks similar to your New Yorker cartoons, but they have splashes of color in them, which is very nice.
I've become a caption contest person in several other arenas. I do some caption contests, as Beth knows, for a couple technology publications, which I have to tell you a story about that. After you won one of them, the very next one, I think you had brought some people along or something.
Yeah.
Because people started putting in, Beth Lawler sent me here, and the editors started writing in our personal notes to each other. The editors were like, "Who's Beth Lawler?"
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yes.
I don't know why they would say I sent them there, but okay.
Right. They thought, well, I think being the technology world, they probably thought it was some hacker or something like that.
Right. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So, that was fun. That was fun. I'm gonna have to enter some more of those.
Oh,
I'll say I sent myself.
Well, you've had a bunch in the New Yorker caption contest as well. You've had probably
I've had a lot of caption contest ones. Yeah. I think it shows that I draw better than I write.
What were your thoughts on the caption contest early on, like when they bought your first one for the caption contest?
I didn't know. Well, the caption contest started before I started selling to the New Yorker, and I remember hearing grumblings from some of the cartoonists I knew. They weren't real happy with it at first. And the first couple times that I sold, I was like, "Oh darn, I'm not good enough to make it the regular magazine." But they'll take the drawing. But the reality is, whenever I do a caption contest, whenever I'm in the caption contest, I hear from more people than I do when I'm in the magazine. And so from a name recognition standpoint, and you're in the magazine 3 times when you're in the caption contest. So I don't mind, and I really enjoy seeing the other captions people come up with, and especially when they're a lot better.
So is it something you track? You kind of, when you have one, you make sure you take a look at what the finalists are and
I always read the final 3. Sure. If not, my wife will read them and point them out to me. And point out that they're much funnier than my original idea.
Does any stand out to your mind that you remember being particularly good? Or
I remember I did one where there was a caveman at bat, and I remember hearing, and I know you guys last week said you're sick of cavemen, but this was well before the caveman became overpopulated. A caveman at bat, and there were 3 really solid captions, and the winning caption was "A lot has happened since your last time at bat," which I thought was really solid. There was another baseball one where I had a knight in a suit of armor at bat. You're seeing a theme here. And the caption, the winning caption was "Let's walk him and pitch to the bishop," which I just thought was really nice. Just taking it to another level beyond the mere description.
Right. Yeah, that one is very clever.
Yeah. I gotta be. Here's another question I have, and I'm scared to put this out in the public, but they still run. They'll still run the cartoons on Cartoon Bank from the caption contest with the winning caption. Has anybody who's put up a winning caption asked for a cut of the resales?
I think it's in the rules that it's owned by the New Yorker.
It becomes their possession. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You're putting money in my pocket.
Do you find that caption contest cartoons resell?
Oh yeah. There's yes. Yes. And I paid more attention. I pay a lot more attention to cartoon stock, and I've got 2 or 3 caption contest ones over there that sell pretty regularly.
Oh, really?
Nice. Yeah.
There's one in particular that I love of yours from a cartoon caption from the New Yorker contest, which was a man getting in an elevator with people standing in the elevator wearing tubas around them.
Yeah.
And the winning caption was, "No, you come in on 4."
Yeah, that was great.
To me was so brilliant. I was like, oh my gosh, that's one, like, I totally wish I thought of that. It was just brilliant.
Yeah, that was a very good one.
The drawing was great too. So
thank you.
It was excellent. But yeah, that was one that I was like, wow, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You have me curious. Is there one in particular? Is there one in particular that sells a print somewhat fairly regularly?
Geez, I'd have to go look because I haven't got it here in front of me. We'll talk, and I'll keep on thinking about it while we're chatting.
Well, the one I like is the one with the baby in the crib with the microphone. I love his bedtime routine, which is great.
Yeah,
it's just perfect for that.
Yeah.
It's nice when, I listen to you guys, dissect caption contests all the time. And I love it when they go to another level, like the word routine in that one is just perfect. That's a nice touch to it.
Yeah.
I was really happy with that drawing too, which isn't always the case. So that was a really nice drawing.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite of your cartoons that was not a contest?
It's interesting. That's kind of evolved. Originally there was one I did a long time ago where a guy's out in the yard talking to his neighbor over the fence, and he's got a dental set up there, and the caption is, "I'm just a gentleman dentist," which I kind of like, but that for me becomes just explaining the drawing, and I like the ones that make a little more logical sense. And so my personal favorite these days is whale to whale resuscitation, because that scientifically works.
I saw that cartoon. I was just going, yeah, that works.
That's great.
Right. So I like that the little weirdness to that it's logically, it's weird but logical. So I like that.
You have one, "Oh honey, our first bankruptcy," a woman hugging her husband, and that's particularly funny to me because I'm in my real life a bankruptcy paralegal.
Oh gosh.
I think that one's funny.
Well, it was interesting. That's got a long story to it in that what did I do? I drew a cartoon about a plane crash or something, and Bob said, the New Yorker doesn't run cartoons about plane crashes. That was a subject matter that wouldn't be used, which is ironic because that classic Peter Arno cartoon, Back to the Drawing Board. But he said the closest we came was one time Jack Ziegler had one where a couple were on a plane saying, "Oh honey, our first plane crash." And you could just picture how Ziegler would draw that, right?
Yeah.
And so I, started that, and that's the way I work with a lot of cartoons. I just take phrases and kind of will get rid of one word and then pop in another word to see what works. And so I came up with, "Oh honey, our first bankruptcy."
I love it. Do you typically come up with the caption first and then draw, or draw the picture? Both.
Yeah. A lot of times, I love to do the drawing first if it works, but there's an awful lot of times that I draw myself into a corner.
Mhm.
You know, I'll do a, you can do a really cute, smart drawing that doesn't allow itself a good caption.
Right. The other one I love of yours is the carnival, carnival one, guess your weight related illness.
You know, I thought that was such an original idea, and then I didn't realize that's like guess your weight related cartoons are catching up with Desert Island cartoons.
Really?
If you go look through New Yorker and look through how many people have a guess your weight or guess this subject, there's a couple dozen of those right now. Yeah, I was happy. I was another drawing I really liked. I like that drawing a lot.
That's great.
Does anybody actually do that anymore? Guess your weight? I mean, when's the last time you went somewhere and had somebody guess your weight?
I actually did that at Great Adventure about probably 10 years ago.
Really?
And the guy did not guess my weight. He got it wrong. I won a prize. I won a prize for it. So it was.
Wait, you win a prize if he gets it wrong?
If they're outside of 5 pounds.
Wow.
Like if they guess the weight, they have to be within 5 pounds and they win. If they're within 5 pounds, if they're outside of 5 pounds.
Did you stand around there a while and watch him do several people? Or was he?
No. I was like, I'll try.
Wow.
Yeah.
It seems like such an odd skill.
Yeah.
I can guess people's weight. You know, is that how do you get into that profession? Yeah. Apprenticeship? What do you do to get into that?
Right. Right.
I can guess your height. Is that what you start out with?
Was he wrong up or down?
He was wrong. He was wrong down. He was. I was heavier than I looked like I was.
All right, so that's safe for him. When
Yeah.
you're wrong way up is when.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I would have been like, what?
Right.
No, but no, he was wrong down. So. Yeah, my kids were like, oh, my kids were with me and they were like, oh, he'll get it. And I was like, no, he won't. No, he won't. It was funny.
So I've been listening to so many of your podcasts. I've got some notes here that I got questions for you guys too.
Okay.
So I recently heard you guys got banned from the cartoon stock caption contest.
No.
The ban was just lifted. It's news that we're going to share today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We were banned for I guess one contest, maybe two. I forget.
Was there whips of insider trading? What was going on?
Somebody emailed Bob and said the idea of a cash prize contest was originally my idea. I pitched it to Bob. I'm not involved whatsoever, but I just he changed the contest from weekly to monthly, and I just emailed him and said I think everyone, including me, is going to lose interest in a monthly caption contest because you look at it, you enter your caption, and then you kind of forget about it 30 days later.
Right.
I said if you could make it cash contest, where we have to pay a little bit of money, but we win back half of what we put in. I pitch it to him as a 50-50 idea. I said, now, if there's cash involved, I'd be interested in a monthly contest, but without cash, a monthly contest is not very exciting. So he liked the idea. He took it, he ran with it, and he did it. Yeah. That was the extent of my involvement, but I had mentioned that on the podcast. And then I think I won the second or third caption contest. So people emailed Bob and said, you're letting these guys win because it was their idea and you know them and you email them. So you're all, it was just one wacko who said you're all in cahoots to, Bob's just, it's a big scam for Bob to give me money.
But they're offering big money now, right? Like $500 or something like that.
Yeah, it's $500 to the winner, and then 5 runner-ups get $100.
So get this: you can make more money winning in the caption contest for cartoon stock than you can for most cartoon publications now, if you're a cartoonist, except for the New Yorker.
Absolutely, and I think cartoonists may start playing for that reason. I know Bob Eckstein plays. I think largely he plays for the goof of it, but also to win $500.
Why not?
Yeah,
why not? Get in on that. Get in on that. Costs you $5 to play. You get 3 chances, and you could win $500 or $100. Wow. So it's a nice return on your investment. I have yet to win, though.
Well, and based on the success of your podcast and the following you guys are creating for for caption contest conversations, isn't it only a matter of time before gambling becomes involved? We'll have like caption contest booths on the corner and, go pick this, put money down on which one's going to win this week.
We do not advocate gambling on captions. That's a good way
Where
to
the
lose
money
money.
is.
Yeah.
What's the over under on Vin, Paul, and Beth?
Exactly. Right.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Well, also, in a couple of years, you have a conversation going about people who made it into the New Yorker just on their own or without without having a connection. And I always heard that Danny Shanahan made it from the slush pile. That he that he wasn't introduced. That he just made it on his own.
Wow.
So I don't know. You could look into that one.
Yeah, I did not know that, but I would not be surprised because he was so talented.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I mean, he is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Actually, I think I may have asked him to come on, and I don't think he was
Oh,
interested.
Danny Shanahan has passed away.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe I did not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Also, I know he had a troubled past
Mhm.
before. I guess I didn't realize he passed away, but I know before
Careful,
that. Yeah.
Paul. Careful, Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. He
But his cartoons were great.
Yeah. Oh, some classics.
Yes. He was amazing. I always bring it up, but my favorite one is the old couple, a woman standing in the hallway and her husband is walking in. It's an older couple, and the caption is, "You slept with her, didn't you?" I just think that is so funny. Oh my gosh.
Well, you always see his Father's Day cartoon every year, and that one's a great one too.
Yep.
Thanks for everything, Dad.
Thanks for everything, Dad. Yeah.
No, thanks for almost everything.
Thanks for almost
Yes,
everything.
almost
Dad.
everything.
That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. Yes. Yes. And of course, his Lassie Get Help.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. He was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I love to hear cartoonists that make it from the slush pile, and I wish there were more. And I just because when we have people on, we say, "Oh yeah, I was submitting to." Now it's submittable. I think it used to be a slush pile years ago. Now you just send through submittable online.
Yeah.
You hear people say, "Yeah, I was doing that for 2 years or so." Then someone introduced me to Emma, and I sold a couple months later. And they sold with stuff that they were submitting through submittable. So it seems like no one over there is looking at those with any type of seriousness. They may be looking through them, but they're just blowing through them without giving them much real thought.
Yeah, I haven't heard. Have you heard of anybody selling through submittable? I haven't heard of anybody making it through that yet.
No.
But something I'm not gonna, that's a hard gig over there with the piles of cartoons that come in every week. I don't judge those guys. They've got a hard job. They could probably pick, what do they run? Like 12 to 18 cartoons an issue. And they could probably have, 50 more that are just as solid from the submissions every week.
Yeah. Plus they have to check them against things that have already run or, there's a lot of moving parts that go in there that you don't even think about.
Point. One thing that, Bob was amazing about that. Bob knew every cartoon that had ever been in the New Yorker. I mean, you could bring in one that you thought was a killer and he'd go, "Oh yeah, Helen Hopkinson ran this one in 1931." It was just, he had memorized every cartoon that ever appeared. That's one of the things, and I understand, new generation, new cartoonists and how cartoonists evolve. But there's an awful lot of, and this is in cartooning in general, when I see cartoons that I've seen so many times before, it's really hard. It's like, gosh, the whole goal here is try to come up with something original and have an original voice. And there's some people who do it very well, but it's hard when you see the same things, the old tropes. So.
Yeah.
Like the other day, what did I see? It wasn't in the New Yorker, it was in another publication. I think the Sisyphus theme has to be retired. I haven't seen an original Sisyphus cartoon, in a while. I still think there's a lot more Desert Island ones that can work, but Sisyphus has really worn itself out for me.
Yeah. There's only so much you can do trudging up a hill, right?
Well,
You just replace the ball with something else, the boulder with something, and then you make a joke about it, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, how many uphill jokes can you make?
I agree.
Yeah. Particularly with the contest, I think they've won out so many tropes. Like I said, I think you can do cavemen cartoons. I think there's plenty more you can do with cavemen cartoons, but not in a caption contest.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just don't think you're going to get more from a caveman in a caption contest.
But that creates a certain tension too, in that in order to create a cartoon, you've got to tap into your reader's knowledge. You know, they've got to associate something. So it makes it easier if you go with a visual, icon or trope. So where does that, where does that balance occur?
There was an interesting conversation about tropes last week. We on the podcast, I think it was last week or the week before, we brought up Lilliputians. And somebody said that they were teaching a class or talking to a bunch of young kids, and they used the word Lilliputian. What was that?
It was Borchardt.
It was Borchardt, yes. And
it was actually Larry.
Was it Larry?
Yeah, pretty sure.
We'll have to roll the tape.
I'm pretty sure
We'll get the replay on that.
Podcast conflict.
Roll the tape. And anyway, the point is that the younger kids didn't know what that meant, what Lilliputian meant.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how those kind of things can evolve and change. And I was surprised by that.
What could you, a lot of our tropes are based on old literature, right? Lilliputian is definitely an example of it. What would be a trope from this era? If 100 years from now, what is something that we don't even think about that'll probably be a trope?
Wow.
Kids texting at the dinner table? I don't know.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anyways, I didn't mean to bring this to a standstill. I apologize.
No, I don't know.
Think. Yeah.
Which makes me think of your Slow Texters Lane cartoon, which is also great.
I forgot about that. I like that. Yeah. That one's resold a lot, but that was all mine. So.
Well, you have your veterans of cursive writing too, so that's.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
that's
gonna pass. They're veterans of cursive writing. Who writes cursively anymore?
Well, they don't even teach it anymore in a lot of schools, which is
I know
crazy.
Yes,
crazy.
My mother was an English teacher, and so that was kind of a love letter for her, and she shared it with all her retired friends. And she's one of those people who has handwriting that looks mechanical, just that Catholic school upbringing where your handwriting is just perfect. So yeah,
I didn't realize they weren't teaching it.
No,
So what is signatures going to look like in the future? Print?
I know they're
in other words, everything asks for print your name and then sign your name. It's just going to be the same? Is it just same?
Well, now it's like DocuSign. You just have a fake, everybody has the same signature. Click a button and they sign your name.
Yeah, but if you got to get it notarized, if you have to hand sign something, is it just going to be print and print?
The thumbprint, then. It's just going to be electronic thumbprint.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they weren't even teaching it.
Yes.
That's news to me.
Yep. It's crazy. Crazy. And kids can't read it. Kids can't read it.
No, that's the beauty of it. Right.
Yeah.
It's writing code. Great.
Right.
That's how you teach it. You tell them, well, I'm going to teach you this secret code, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it's crazy because like in 50 years, if they stop teaching it, are kids going to be able to read the Declaration of Independence, or are they going to be, it's like crazy. My sister sent me a text message with a photo one day, which was a handwritten note that she left on the table for one of her kids to do something. And when she got home, the kid hadn't done it. And she said, "Why didn't you do what I asked you to do?" And he said, "I couldn't read what you were asking me to do." So she texts me the picture. She's like, "Can you read that?" It's crazy. It's crazy. But anyway, we're digressing from cartooning.
Yes.
But,
kind of.
Cartooning, cursive writing, they're all dying art forms.
Well, hopefully the cartoons aren't dying.
It's interesting to see what shapes they're taking, though. Because print is definitely quieting down. I like I said, I teach cartoons at a small art school. I've got college age students, and they have no interest in single panel cartoons. They're more interested in sequential stuff, more comic booky graphic novel type things. I do a lot of exercises with caption contests, or giving them a caption that they have to come up with drawings for.
Oh, wow.
And they don't do it naturally. And these are kids who draw all the time. So I wonder how it'll continue to evolve in that regard.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, they clearly didn't grow up on the far side.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a kid this year who didn't know what Calvin and Hobbes was.
Oh my gosh.
An art
That makes
major.
me sad.
Oh, that's
I know.
blasphemous.
It made me feel old, I'll tell you that.
Calvin and
Oh
Hobbes.
my God.
He's like, what is that? I'm like, oh, no.
Oh.
Wow.
But, it will evolve. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this from other people. Bob always distinguished between comedy and cartoons. You were drawing a cartoon and you were telling a joke. And a lot of that would be, if it was a drawing that was inconsequential, the drawing added nothing to the piece, and it was a funny line, that was more, you say, oh, that's comedy, and cartooning being that unique combination of visual and words. I mean, we can always find cartoons that just survive because of the caption, that the drawing doesn't mean a lot. But when you find those good ones that have that combination, that's a pretty unique piece of art right there.
Yeah, or the perfect captionless cartoon that the drawing tells the whole story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you try for many of those? I don't know if I've seen
Many
captionless
Captionless?
cartoons. You have some that don't have a caption, but they have like a sign, like
Yeah.
the back of a truck is
Yeah, that's probably the closest. It's never intentional, cartooning's a found art as far as the creation for me. I'll just hear something, or I'll see something, or I'll find something in my sketchbook while I'm drawing it. I find that, if I want to really do a terrible cartoon, I'll try to do something intentionally. I'm going to do a funny cartoon about Give Back Tuesday tomorrow, okay? And it's going to suck. It's really going to suck. Are there any more by the way, today was Give Back Tuesday, right? Is there anything for Wednesday and Thursday?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
I don't think so.
Give it time.
So speaking of doing a cartoon for that particular day, do you ever submit to the daily cartoon?
Yeah, I've had a couple dailies done. I haven't submitted there in a while, but I'd like to. For me, the whole process of doing single panel cartoons, I've got to get a couple days warm up. I can't, when I've been working on other projects and then I sit down to do some single panels, they're terrible for a day or two. It's like I always find the third day I start to get back in the mode again. So I'm looking forward to. I've got a good chunk of free time for the next few months. Really working up some single panel stuff.
What have you been engaged? You said you haven't submitted for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. What have you been involved with?
I was pretty busy teaching. I did some cartoon. I did single panel cartoons, but for specific projects. I contributed some to a book a friend of mine's got coming out called The Widow's Handbook, which is actually I think there's a niche there. So I did a whole pile of widow cartoons. So that was kind of fun. Little things like that. More I work with these technology sites. I do a caption contest for Modern Dog Magazine, which is pretty fun. So just a lot of odds and ends.
How do you like teaching? How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for about 7 years now. I like it because I get to talk about stuff I love. I get to show these kids a lot of cartoons that they haven't seen. I'm making assumptions here about everybody's age, but I can make references to 1985 that you guys all get. 1985 might as well be the Civil War to my kids. Okay. So it's kind of cool. It's like, okay, here is the Far Side. Here is Calvin and Hobbes. So it's fun seeing. I mean, these kids are really talented too. Kids in art school draw 100 times better than I ever did at that age. And so, I learn as much from them as they learn from me in that regard.
What age are you teaching?
College age.
College age, okay.
Yeah, I'll assume the drawing people will just get better and better at actually drawing, right? Because people are getting better at baseball but it's just everyone just gets better as time goes. The new generation is always better than the previous. I don't know if the caption, the writing is as good, but the drawing has been as good.
Well, and also, as we kind of touched on, are they evolving all towards the same image? Are they all going to, end up drawing these really clean digital drawings? Or are they going to realize, I really push for, developing voice or developing, a visual style, but they all seem to want to be drawing the same thing. And I worry about that. It's very, once again, to go back, the one we always go to, Ed Steed is so unique, Drew is so unique. And you want to point out to somebody at college level, do you understand why these people stand out? It's not because they're drawing like everybody else. So
Right.
I think the latter will happen, and they'll realize that they have to stand out and start changing. I say that because we had Sophie Johnson on, who's a new Yorker cartoonist.
Mm-hmm.
And she started out very digital, and now when we had her on, I said, "Oh, your new stuff looks different." She said, "Yeah, she moved away from digital and started doing more drawn by hand, by pencil." And it seems like she was doing that because she realized her stuff was kind of blending in with everybody else. So she moves more original style. So I suspect that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, go to the history of the New Yorker itself. The reason, New Yorker cartoons were the odd child at that time when they first started doing that. They just stood out because they looked different, and the captions were so, single panel cartoons at that time when the New Yorker came around used to be conversations. They'd be two captions. They'd be, Beth is talking to Vin, okay, and Vin replies, and then it was, I say it's spinach, and I say to hell with it, and here we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny to think back to that. When you go through the old ones, it's interesting how it.
Well, they were developing it at that point. It was something new, and they weren't sure what they're doing. So let's just do it and figure it out as we go along.
Can you imagine when somebody opened the magazine and saw a Thurber drawing for the first time?
What was that?
Honey, something's wrong with this magazine.
They're like, I paid 75 cents or whatever they paid for this magazine.
Right, exactly.
Amazing.
Was he the first to be not an excellent artist?
I don't know, to be honest with you. He was one of the earliest, but also at that time, that's when the staff was writing the cartoons and giving them to artists. The cartoonists were basically illustrators then, but Thurber was one of the first people to be doing his own material.
Yeah, but I feel like the artists were always very, very good. And then you look at his stuff. I like it, but it's not the best drawing in the world.
Yeah.
Well, he had his own style, and that's what we're trying to get at: is do your own thing. It doesn't
have your own voice.
Yeah, I'm curious if he was the first that was able to break in, saying, "Hey, look, I'm not the best artist in the world, but."
Well, he was, I'm assuming, and I'd have to go look it up, but I'm assuming his writing was pretty well established at that time. He was a solid humorist, had written for the magazine. I don't know, what the exact order was, but I'm assuming he had established himself by that time.
Well, it's funny. It's interesting because looking, older cartoonists like William Steig or Steig, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Some of his art was crazy looking, scribble, and then he would have other cartoons that were beautiful works of art and covers, so it's interesting because it's almost like he was doing the scribbly art on purpose.
Yeah,
he probably was. He was trying to what he was trying to do. He did different styles for different reasons,
right?
And he could do whatever he wanted, which is great,
right?
Yeah. So let me see if I've got any other questions for you guys. I've covered Sisyphus, gambling, Shanahan. I have to get one more beef off my chest.
Okay.
this whole cartoonists are when they on social media, somebody will say, here's my cartoon in this week's magazine, thank you Emma and Colin, blah blah blah. This thanking of editors, it's got to stop. Okay, they aren't. This is a professional relationship. I don't go up to my boss every week and go, thank you for that paycheck. Okay, so it can only end up being a bad evolution here. You know, it becomes indentured in some way. Cartoonists, stop thanking your editors. They're only doing their job. Okay.
I wonder if
it's like that.
I wonder if it's too late.
Yeah, I know. I think
if you're the guy now who's not doing it, it's like, I
yeah,
didn't get
yeah. What a rude bastard he is. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And they're thanking all three, right? Emma, Colin, and
I just saw somebody
Rachel.
do that
Sorry,
today,
Rachel.
actually. I don't remember who it was. I just saw somebody do that today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it was
you're
funny
right.
because it must have been like an autocorrect thing, because Colin Stokes' name came out as Colin Stoked, like the word stoked, and I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
So I don't remember who did it.
Yeah.
But I
mean,
just saw that recently.
This isn't to, you know, put any shade on them. I mean, they do a wonderful job and they're wonderful people. They're doing their job.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. It's you don't thank your boss for continued employment. You just do your job and you do it well.
If anything, we're providing them with content to fill the spaces in their magazine.
They should be thanking you.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
That's true.
They do.
Should.
They send a check. So.
Mhm.
So okay, good.
Thank
We've
you,
got
that'd be nice.
it that we're going to have gambling, caption contest gambling. We're not going to thank the editors anymore. All right, excellent. And you guys have been reinstated to the cartoon stock. Caption
Yes.
Yes.
And
We're
you should play the cartoon stock caption contest.
yes, because I can make more money playing the cartoon stock caption contest than I can drawing the damn cartoon.
Just, you know what? I think it would be really cool to see an actual cartoonist win the contest one day. And like when the announcement goes out who won, to see an actual cartoonist win, I think that would be kind of fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I do.
When there's the riots are out in the street.
Some people might think, oh, that's not fair. That's like, you know, that's like professional athletes playing in the Olympics. But, you know, to me, I think it would be kind of cool.
Absolutely. If it's not your cartoon, I agree with Beth. Play.
Yeah.
And for the amount of entries, you actually have a better chance at winning that contest than you do in getting your cartoon picked to be in the New Yorker.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, you're making me cry, Paul.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
And I'm going to send more people to all your other cartoon
Please do
contests.
Actually, that's in my interest, because the more people they get entering, then they'll think that translates to readership, and we won't tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want, send us an email of the ones that you said, Modern Dog. If there are any others,
okay,
Beth will put it out there to her army, and I'm sure you'll get a lot.
Fair warning.
Fair warning. Fair warning. These people
stop dropping Beth's name.
I'll be like, tell them I sent you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Tell them Beth sent you.
I'm going to be banned myself from all of these.
You're going to have to come up with an alias for Captain.
Right. Oh my God, that's so funny. I love it.
All right. Well, it's been an hour. Went by real quick. Thank you.
Good.
Well, thank you all. Like I said, I've been binging these podcasts the last few weeks. I'll tell you, being a cartoonist, for me, I don't live in New York, so I don't have access to a lot of the meetings and stuff like that. So most of the information I find is by listening to your podcast. Oh yeah, that's what so-and-so said. Oh, that's what we're doing next week. So I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be able to talk to you guys, and this is a lot of fun.
I love
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Welcome back whenever you'd like. Whenever you have something to share, by all means.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on.
Sure. It's nice meeting you all. Take care.
Okay. All right. Bye, John.
Bye-bye.